Chapter 6. Working on his library essay like he'd never worked on any essay in his whole essay writing life, Kyle crafted a killer thesis sentence that compared libraries to his favorite games. Using a library can make learning about anything and everything fun, he wrote. When you're in a library researching a topic, you're on a scavenger hunt, looking for clues and prizes in books, instead of your attic or backyard. He put in points and subpoints. He wrapped everything up with a tidy conclusion. He even checked his spelling twice. But Akemi had been right. "I'm sorry, Kyle," Mrs. Cameron said when he handed her his new paper at the end of the day. "This is very good, and I am very impressed by your effort. However, the deadline was this morning. Rules are rules, the same as they are in all board games you mentioned in your essay." She had basically handed Kyle a go back 500 spaces card. But Kyle refused to give up. He remembered how his mother had written to Mr. Lemoncello's Imagination Factory when he and his brothers needed a fresh set of clue cards for the indoor-outdoor scavenger hunt. Maybe he could send his essay directly to Mr. Lemoncello via email. Maybe, if the game maker wasn't judging the essays until later that night, Kyle still had a shot. A long shot, but hey, sometimes the long ones were the only shots you got. The second he hit home, he sat down at his mother's kitchen computer. He attached his essay file to a high-priority email address to Mr. Lemoncello at the Imagination Factory. "What are you doing, Kyle?" his mom asked when she came into the room and found him typing on her computer. "Some extra credit homework." "Extra credit? School's out at the end of the week." "So? You're not playing my Diner Dash game, are you?" "No, Mom, it's an essay about Mr. Lemoncello's amazing new library downtown." "Oh, sounds interesting. I heard on the radio that there's going to be a gala grand opening reception this Friday night at the Parker House Hotel, right across the street from the old bank building. I mean, the new library." Kyle typed in a PS to his email. "I hope at the party on Friday you have balloons." He hit send. "Who'd you send your essay to?" his mother asked. "Your teacher?" "No, Mr. Lemoncello himself. It took some digging, but I found his email address on his game company's website." "Really? I'm impressed." His mom rubbed his hair. "You know, this morning I said to your dad, Kyle can be just as smart as Curtis and just as focused as Mike when he puts his mind to it." Kyle smiled. "Thanks, Mom." But his smile quickly disappeared when a bong alerted him to an incoming email from Mr. Lemoncello. It was an auto-response form letter. "Dear Lemoncello Game Lover, this is a no-reply mailbox. Your message did not go through. Do not try to resend it or you'll just hear another bong, but thank you for playing our games." Chapter 7. Heading back to school on Tuesday, Kyle knew he had to put on a brave face. He smiled as he walked in with his class toward the auditorium for a special early morning assembly, the one where Mr. Luigi L. Lemoncello himself would announce the winners of the library lock-in essay contest. "I hope he picked yours," Kyle whispered to Akemi. "Thanks, I do too, but the lock-in won't be as much fun without you." "Well, when it's over and the library is officially open, you can take me on a tour." "That's exactly what I'm going to do, if I win. If you don't, I'm sending a flaming squirrel after Mrs. Cameron." For this assembly, the 7th graders, most of whom were 12 years old, were told to sit in the front rows close to the stage. That made Kyle feel a little better. At least he'd get the chance to see Mr. Lemoncello up close and personal. But his hero wasn't even on stage. Just the principal, the school librarian, Mrs. Youngins, and a red-headed woman in high-heeled shoes who Kyle didn't recognize. She sat up straight like someone had slipped a yardstick down the back of her bright red business suit. Her glasses were bright red, too. "That's Dr. Yanina Zinchenko," gushed Miguel Fernandez, who was sitting on Kyle's right. "Who's she?" asked Akemi, seated to Kyle's left. "Just the most famous librarian in the whole wide world." "All right, boys and girls," said the principal at the podium. "Settle down. Quiet, please. It is my great honor to introduce the head librarian for the new Alexandriaville Public Library, Dr. Yanina Zinchenko." Everybody clapped. The tall lady in the red outfit strode to the microphone. "Good morning." Her voice was breathy with just a hint of Russian accent. 12 years ago, this town lost its one and only public library when it was torn down to make room for an elevated parking garage. Back then, many said the internet had rendered the old-fashioned library obsolete, that a new parking garage would attract shoppers to the boutiques and dress shops near the old bank building. But the library's demolition also meant that those of you who are now 12 years old have lived your entire lives without a public library. She looked down at the front rows. This is why, to kick off our summer reading program, 12 12-year-olds will be selected to be the very first to explore the wonders awaiting inside Mr. Lemoncello's extraordinary new library. You will, of course, need your parents' permission. We have slips for you to take home. You will also need a sleeping bag, a toothbrush, and, if you please, a change of clothes. She smiled mysteriously. You might consider packing 2 pairs of underwear. Okay, thought Kyle, that's bizarre. Did the librarian really think 7th graders weren't toilet trained? There will be movies, food, fun games, and prizes. Also, each of our 12 winners will receive a $500 gift card toward the purchase of Lemoncello games and gizmos. Oh man, $500 worth of free games and gear? Kyle sank a little lower in his seat. The next time someone gave him an extra credit essay assignment, he'd turn it in early. And now, here to announce our winners, the man behind the new library, the master gamester himself, Mr. Luigi Lemoncello. Dr. Zinchenko gestured to her left. The whole auditorium swung their heads. People were clapping and whistling and cheering, but nobody came on stage. The applause petered out, and then on the opposite side of the stage, Kyle heard a very peculiar sound. It was a cross between a burp and the squeak from a squeeze toy. Chapter 8. Over on the side of the stage, a shoe that looked like a peeled open banana appeared from behind a curtain. When it landed, the shoe burp squeaked. As a second banana shoe burp squeaked onto the floor, Kyle looked up, and there he was. Mr. Lemoncello! He had a loose and flappy limbs and was dressed in a 3-piece black suit with a bright red tie. His black, broad-brimmed hat was cocked at a crooked angle atop his curly white hair. Kyle was so close he could see a sly twinkle sparkling in Mr. Lemoncello's coal-black eyes. Treading very carefully, Mr. Lemoncello walked toward the podium. The burp squeaks in his shoes seemed to change pitch depending on how hard he landed on his heels. He added a couple of little jig steps, a quick hop, and a strutter step skip. And yes, his shoes were squeaking out a song. Pop goes the weasel. On the pop, Mr. Lemoncello popped behind the podium. The crowd went wild. Mr. Lemoncello politely bowed and said very softly, thank you, grazie, grazie. He bent forward so his mouth was maybe an inch away from the microphone. Buongiorno, boys and girls. He spoke very timidly, very slowly. How my mama and my papa teach me to speak de English. He wiggled his ears, straightened his back. But then he said in a crisp, clear voice, I went to the Alexandriaville Public Library, where a wonderful librarian named Mrs. Gail Tobin helped me learn how to speak like this. If 2 witches were watching 2 watches, which witch would watch which watch? I can also speak while upside down and underwater, but not today, because I just had this suit dry cleaned and do not want to get it wet. Mr. Lemoncello bounced across the stage like a happy grasshopper. Now then, children, if I may call you that, which I must because I have not yet memorized all of your names, even though I am working on it. What do you think is the most amazingly incredible thing you'll find inside your wondrous new library, besides, of course, all of the knowledge you'll need to do anything and everything you ever want or need to do? No one said anything. They were too mesmerized by Mr. Lemoncello's rat-a-tat words. Would it be A, robots silently whizzing their way through the library, restocking the shelves? B, the Electronic Learning Center with 36 plasma screen TVs all connected to flight stimulators and educational video games? Or C, the Wonder Dome. Lined with 10 giant video screens, it can make the whole building feel like a rocket ship blasting off into outer space. The game room, someone shouted. The robots. The video dome. Mr. Lemoncello raced back to the podium and made a buzzing noise into the microphone. Sorry. The correct answer is, and not just because of Winn-Dixie, D, all of the above. The crowd went wild. Mr. Lemoncello whirled around to face his head librarian. Dr. Zinchenko, would you kindly help me pass out our 12 library cards? It was time to announce the essay contest winners. Dr. Zinchenko placed a stack of 12 shiny cards on the podium in front of Mr. Lemoncello. Please, he said, as I call your name, come and join me on stage. Miguel Fernandez. Yes! Miguel jumped out of his seat. Akimi Hughes. Woohoo! Kyle was thrilled to see two of his friends be the first ones called onto the stage. Andrew Peckelman, Bridget Wadge, Sierra Russell, Yasmin Smith-Snyder. Yasmin squealed when her name was called. Sean Keegan, Haley Daly, Rose Vermette, and Kayla Corson. 10 kids, all the same age as Kyle, were up on stage with his idol, Mr. Lemoncello. He was not. Only 2 more chances. As if reading his mind, Mr. Lemoncello said, only 2 more, and tapped a pair of library cards on the podium. Charles Chiltington. Gosh, really? He dashed up to the podium and started pumping Mr. Lemoncello's hand. Thank you, sir. This is such an honor. Truly, I mean that. Thank you, Charles. May I have my hand back? I need it to flip over this final card. Of course, sir, but I cannot wait to spend the night in your library, or as I like to call it, your Athenaeum, because, as I said in my essay, when you open a book, you opened your mind. Finally, Charles, the brown noser, let go of Mr. Lemoncello's hand and went over to line up with the other winners. And last but not least, said Mr. Lemoncello, Kyle Keeley. Kyle could not believe his ears. He thought he was dreaming, but then Akimi started waving for him to come on up. Dazed, Kyle made his way up the steps to join the others on stage. Mr. Lemoncello handed Kyle a library card. His name and the number 12 were printed on the front. 2 book covers, I Love You, Stinky Face, and The Napping House were on the back. Let's all pose for pictures, please, said the principal. When everybody moved into position for the photographer, Kyle found himself standing right next to Mr. Lemoncello. He swallowed hard. I'm a big fan, sir, he said, and his voice was kind of shaky. Why, thank you. And remind me who you are? I'm Kyle, sir. Kyle Keeley. Ah, yes, the boy who proved that I've always known to be true. The game is never over until it's over.